Welcome to another edition of Don Hammond's Arlington Weekly News. We have a slightly unusual lineup this week. News, coverage of Arlington's Town Hall meeting, Community Bulletin Board, a follow-up segment on Arlington's Invisible Threat, and in the absence of much 55-plus news, a message from Arlington author Earl Johnson. That's the show. As for social media, you can watch us on YouTube at Arlington Weekly News and the number 1. Also find us on Facebook and on the radio at WERA 96.7 FM. Now, on to the news. As of Sunday evening, May 24th, reports show the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Arlington had exceeded 1,800. Flare, Arlington's electric vehicle service, has adapted its vehicles to ensure passenger health and safety once its service resumes. They have installed floor-to-ceiling clear vinyl dividers between each seat and row. Flare will limit each ride to 2 passengers, 1 per row, require passenger masks, and provide masks for those who don't have them. They will also regularly use disinfectant on all surfaces between rides. Since stay-at-home orders began in March, Flare has modified its operations, picking up and delivering food donations to support community relief efforts instead of the passengers it had planned to carry. Flare recently launched its Meals for Community Heroes program, which connects local restaurants and sponsors with those on the front lines of the COVID-19 response in Arlington County and the organizations supporting these efforts. Flare is also working with the Columbia Pike Revitalization Organization to deliver lunch for Virginia Hospital Center staff every Tuesday and Friday. Flare has partnered with the Ballston Business Improvement District to collect and deliver food donations from 5 locations in Ballston for the Arlington Food Assistance Center, AFAC, every Friday. Flare is also collecting and transporting food donations for AFAC in 10 apartment buildings in Crystal City. In March, Flare delivered over 800 pounds of food for the Arlington Food Assistance Center. I visited the much-anticipated walk-up test site for COVID-19 at the Arlington Mill Community Center on Tuesday, May 19th, at about 3:40 in the afternoon. Since the site is supposedly open on weekdays from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m., I was surprised to see the makeshift facility empty and the entrance blocked by orange traffic canisters. As I approached to get a closer look, I was informed by an attending police officer that the entire area was closed to the general public. An advance appointment with a doctor's order is required to even approach the test site. Civitan has just posted notice that their regular June community yard sale has been canceled. The nonprofit organization seems to be making their decisions on a month-to-month basis. Now for the first roll-in. Last Friday's Arlington Town Hall showed some apparently rushed decisions and short notice. Here are the highlights. Arlington's May 22nd Town Hall started at 1:30 p.m. Attendees included Libby Garvey, Christian Dorsey, Mark Schwartz, Jim Schwartz, Dr. Ruben Varghese, and Jane Rudolph, Director of Parks and Recreation. The meeting ran an additional 15 minutes, so rather than giving a blow-by-blow recital, we'll just review the answers and announcements. There was an announcement of a special one-day open testing site at the Barcroft Fitness Center on 4 Mile Run Drive. No doctor notes or advance appointments will be required, and the site will be available for both walk-up and drive-up attendees. In addition, the hours of operation will be extended between 10 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening. That's the good news. The bad news is that the one-day event will take place on Tuesday, May 26th, which provides only 4 days' notice from the meeting time. The targeted group, low-income residents in the 22204 zip code, may not get the news until it's too late. Also, the need for food is at an all-time high. Arlington now has 12,000 unemployment compensation claims constituting 8% of the labor force, and some others are suffering from reduced income. Accordingly, signage has been added to median strips and other grassy areas providing telephone numbers which residents can call for assistance, provided they have a phone. The federally funded CARES Act will give Arlington a share of almost $21 million based on population. It's good, but not really enough for everything. It will help with support and resources for emergency cash to avoid eviction, small business support, improved testing, and other needs. However, it will not be enough to make up for other budget shortfalls. The Arlington Public Schools will receive their own separate funding. Meanwhile, the 2020 U.S. Census has a response rate of only 69% in Arlington, with about 30,000 households yet to participate. Ironically, these are mostly located in the areas and demographic groups who need the most help. As far as COVID trends are concerned, Arlington is described as improving, with 1 week remaining before the decision to start reopening will be made. With special guest Jane Rudolph in attendance, there were a lot of questions about Arlington's parks and recreation facilities. Ms. Rudolph announced a partial reopening of parks on May 23rd, but the tennis courts and basketball courts would remain closed. Face masks and social distancing will still be encouraged. Libby Garvey suggested that it would be possible for residents to purchase a carry-out meal from a local restaurant, then consume it at one of the parks in a picnic fashion. But this would be difficult while wearing a mask. 3 high school swimming pools and some other public pools are subject to guidance from the governor. There is some talk of opening pools for lap swimming only, but this may not be feasible at all facilities. Arlington's summer camps are canceled this year. Although some bad behavior is acknowledged in the parks, the rangers are not empowered to enforce the rules. Additional signage will be posted to encourage compliance, but ultimately, citizens will have to self-police. There is hope that some of the additional facilities could at least be partially reopened sometime in June, but it's too early to tell. Mark Schwartz reminded everyone that Arlington must follow the Virginia state guidance and that Governor Northam would make final decisions. Meanwhile, Dr. Varghese stressed that everyone should have face coverings when going out in public, especially when shopping. Also, the recommendations are all-inclusive, not either-or, which means face coverings plus hand washing plus social distancing plus keeping travel at a minimum. Assisted living facilities are trying to keep the germs out, hence no visitors. The same concept applies to the inside facilities at community centers and libraries, because interior spaces are too hard to control. Noncompliance has been observed at certain construction sites, parks, and within high-rise apartment buildings. Arlington has inspectors for the construction sites, but cooperation has not been universal. Within high-rise buildings, the only recourses are reporting the problems to the building management, planning your outings during off hours, or, when feasible, using the stairs instead of the elevator. It was pointed out that poor compliance going into Phase 1 could produce a spike in COVID cases and force a return to Phase 0. On a positive note, some 30,000 masks have been ordered and are expected soon. The first batch will go to county employees, but regular citizens will also get a share. In summation, best behavior was encouraged. Wearing masks, minimizing trips, washing hands, staying home as much as possible, using hand sanitizer, and avoiding face touching. The meeting concluded at 1:45 p.m. Now it's time for CBB, or Community Bulletin Board. Mark Riley, also known as the Big Turkey from Arlington's annual Turkey Trot fundraiser, has set up another fundraiser for Phoenix Bikes. The organization teaches young people how to repair and maintain bicycles then offers the refurbished bikes for sale. There is a matching arrangement that runs through the end of May. By the time this program airs, Arlington's parks will have been opened for several days, albeit in a limited capacity. The reopening occurred before Arlington was officially ready to enter Phase 1. It appears to have been a simple concession to the kind of widespread non-compliance reminiscent of the days of Prohibition. It's been said that Prohibition was responsible for a number of deaths from unregulated alcoholic substitutes, as well as a significant rise in organized crime, but this assertion is not accurate. These tragedies were caused by public indifference and defiance. In my daily media surveys of Arlington streets and parks, I have observed signage having been removed from parks, players having pried open chained gates to play soccer, and daily occupancy of fields in plain view of field-closed signs. On Friday, May 22nd, I took a walk at 2:15 in the afternoon along North George Mason Drive and then along the Bluemont Junction Trail as far as North Kensington Street. I made a tally of the number of adults who were wearing the recommended face coverings compared to those who were not. There were 41 people without masks. Only 4 people were covering their faces with masks, and one person was wearing a loose mask which hung down around his neck as if it were some sort of talisman that would magically protect without actually being applied. There were also 6 children being led, none with masks. It does not speak well of the compliance of Arlingtonians. Here's our second roll-in, an update to the invisible threat story. Viewers and listeners may recall our earlier story about Arlington's invisible threat, about the panhandler on Fairfax Drive across from the Ballston Metro. The threat stemmed from the panhandler's lack of a face covering, gloves, or any kind of protective equipment, and his failure to observe social distancing while soliciting for money. The question now being posed is, what can a person do when they are on foot with no car, phone, or cash and hungry at 6:00 p.m. on a Tuesday? To obtain some answers, I first called the Homeless Center at 703-228-1775 and left a message to call. Then I called the COVID-19 hotline, 703-228-7999, at 1:04 p.m. An automated message offered me the following options. For Spanish, press 1. For an emergency, call 911. Information about the county response can be found on their website. Click on the orange banner at the top of the page. For information about testing or if you're sick, choose option 1. For specific information on COVID-19 and other social service resources, choose option 2. To speak to a representative, choose option 3. Option 3 was answered by someone who asked me, "Are you asking as a newspaper reporter or as a citizen of Arlington?" I explained that I saw no distinction between the two, since our TV and radio information would go out to citizens of Arlington who would want to know how to help. I was asked to hold for transfer to another, more knowledgeable person. I was on hold until 1:19. The attempt to transfer me to the Communications Director Jennifer K. Smith at 703-228-1750 took me to a recording which identified itself with the name Francisco. Having been given the number verbally as well, I tried to redial it, but I got Francisco again. After that dead end, I went to the county's website and clicked on the orange banner. The next screen offered the following. If you need assistance getting groceries or meals, call 703-228-1300. For COVID-19 information, call 703-228-7999, the number I had just tried. In a separate section, though, there was a listing for a media contact. The media contact line was answered immediately by a very cooperative person who gave me the correct phone number for Jennifer Case Smith. My previous respondent had transposed the digits not only verbally, but also when trying to make the transfer. This new respondent encouraged me to call back if Jennifer didn't pick up right away. After I encountered voicemail, I did call back at 1:53 p.m. and received a referral to the Food Cooperative. By then it was time for my daily foot patrol to gather news by walking the streets and trails. When I returned an hour later, I had a voicemail message, which had resulted from my first call to the homeless center. They provided the following information. The coalition goes on outreach into the neighborhoods. They bring masks, kits, food, and provide needy people with information. There are 2 daily options, which include hygiene facilities like showers at the Residential Program Center on Columbia Pike by the Pentagon. Their hours are from 9 o'clock a.m. to 12 noon and from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. The other option is the Highlander Motel on Wilson Boulevard, which keeps the same hours. Transportation via the art buses is reportedly free. There are also 5 shelters for overnight stays. Unfortunately, the day program, which provides phone and internet access, has been temporarily suspended due to the COVID-19 crisis. The solution to my original question, for someone who has no phone, no cash, no means of transportation, will have to wait until some future installment. We'll pick this up later on. Now it's time for the 55 Plus news. Unfortunately, we're providing an update to nothing. The 55 Plus website remains empty, and that's all we have for this week, except to continue to encourage safe behavior. Instead, we have a video message from Arlington author Earl Johnson. Here he is.
My name is Earl Johnson, and I am from Arlington, Virginia. I moved to Arlington on September 9th, 2001 from Lower Manhattan, and I was sitting in my backyard in Arlington when I heard the plane hit the Pentagon. This was 2 days after moving from Lower Manhattan, where I was a hospital and hospice chaplain. And after the September 11th attacks, I started becoming more interested in disaster chaplaincy because all the skill sets from healthcare and hospice chaplaincy transfers over into disaster chaplaincy quite well. The whole idea of companioning people and being with people who are experiencing unanticipated and profound, complicated grief was a career path that was very compelling for me. You know, in disaster, people have a need for comfort, a profound need for comfort, and that was the inspiration for me to do the book, Finding Comfort During Hard Times, which came out of my years in hospital chaplaincy with AIDS patients, and into disaster chaplaincy, where I worked with SARS and Ebola, and eventually now with COVID-19. We are changed by disasters. No disaster leaves someone untouched or unchanged by the experience. And so as a result of COVID-19, we are going to be profoundly changed individually and as a society. We have a profound need in disaster for accurate information, for reliable information, and also for reassurance. And this reassurance comes in many forms, but it basically is working with people, treating them as our neighbor, actively listening, and just what are they really talking about? What are they really asking? And then as you work with these individuals in helping them find comfort, you're also seeking to help identify sources of hope in their life, things that have helped them get through hard times in the past, and that will be helping them get through this one too. We don't know how long this one is going to last, but we have to prepare for months, not days. And we have to deal with the isolation and all the issues that are raised because we are in quarantine, although that seems to be rapidly coming to an end in parts of the country. And we just need to deal with issues that have arisen as a result of isolation and deal with those as well as the COVID-19. Some examples are depression, dealing with anger that turns into depression, dealing with cabin fever, dealing with issues related to even domestic violence, and those who are facing profound mental health and emotional issues before COVID-19. It's only made worse as a result of COVID-19. So we really need to be sensitive to one another. But those are some of the issues to start with, and that led me to write the book. And it's been a work in progress for about 10 years. Ironically, it comes out in the middle of a pandemic, and I'm advocating for more spiritual care in pandemics. And happily, the media has paid attention to hospital chaplains and hospice chaplains in their work with COVID-19 patients. And that's a good thing to highlight their work. But ironically, the book comes out in the midst of a catastrophe and a mass fatality event. And that's exactly what I've written about. But it's a little bit tough promoting a book in the middle of a catastrophe about a catastrophe. So I'll stop right there for a second.
I'm interested in your thoughts on what constitutes cabin fever. It's a phrase that is part of the standard language, and yet I'm not sure that people necessarily understand enough about it to recognize it.
Cabin fever basically is dealing with all the issues, mostly negative issues that arise out of isolation and quarantine. But for the most part, cabin fever takes on the negative issues where being stuck in a close confined quarter with either family or loved ones or close friends, that the pressure of all the emotions under one roof makes for a very explosive equation, and that's where cabin fever gets its accurate characterization as being something quite negative.
Where can people find your book?
Well, it's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, the major websites, and the individual independent bookstores' websites, because the irony is that bookstores are closed now, but they may be opening in the near future. But the book, Finding Comfort During Hard Times, is available online, and the supply has been replenished.
That was Arlington author Earl Johnson discussing the issues in his book, Finding Comfort During Hard Times. Mr. Johnson might be best described as one of the ordinary folks in Arlington, providing much-needed help during extraordinary times. And that concludes this week's show. We will be back next week with more news from Arlington, along with some on-the-ground observations. Meanwhile, be careful, be safe, and be well. At least, that's the end of the radio program. Here's some added entertainment for the TV viewers.
Hey there, stranger, are you going my way? Seems we'll be together for a while. And it's such a long, long road with so many things to see. And I'm looking for someone in whom I can confide. For you know I'm only going for the ride. Hey there, stranger, you know you look familiar. Think I've seen your face somewhere before. And I've such a long, long way with so many things to be. And I'm looking for someone whose feelings I can know, 'cause that's the only reason that I go. You know the thunder follows you whichever path you take, and the going's often painful, often slow, and the burden that you carry is your every last